It was my 65th birthday, and the house was eerily quiet. For years, I'd lived in the shadow of a marriage that drained me, that wore me thin until I was nothing but a reflection of the woman I used to be. David Grant, the man who was supposed to be my partner, had died unexpectedly just a few weeks ago. And while the world mourned his loss, I finally felt like I could breathe again. For the first time in my life, I was free from the constant need to prove my worth to him. No more dinners at fancy restaurants he sneered at. No more watching his favorite shows I hated. No more pretending to be someone I wasn't just to keep him happy. I had my life back. The remote control was in my hand. It felt almost foreign, as if I had never held it before. I flipped through the channels. Soap operas, the ones David called meaningless, filled the screen. And yet, this time, I watched with a strange satisfaction. They weren't meaningless anymore. They were mine to enjoy, mine to escape into. I had the whole evening, the whole day to myself, and for the first time, I relished the thought. On my birthday, I ordered a durian mille-crêpe cake. David would have hated it. He always thought durian was garbage, just like he thought everything I did was beneath him. I ate alone, savoring every bite, feeling the weight of years lifting off my shoulders. As I was about to make a wish, my phone buzzed. It was my daughter, long-estranged, but today of all days, she called. "Mom," she said, her voice steady but distant. Today would have been Dad's 67th birthday. "Don't forget to fry some of those little yellow croakers he loved." A sharp pang shot through me, but I forced a smile, one he'd never seen, never appreciated. "Oh, we already went to the cemetery with Uncle and Aunt," I said, my voice calm, cool. No sense making him unhappy down there. The call ended abruptly. I sat there, alone in the stillness of the house, the silence almost deafening. For a moment, I felt the familiar ache of abandonment, the endless years spent caring for someone who never truly cared for me. I closed my eyes, letting the quiet wash over me before lighting the candles on my cake, and with the flicker of the flame, I made my wish, a wish I had never dared to voice before. If I could live it over again, I wouldn't want to have anything to do with David Grant. The instant I opened my eyes, everything shifted. The room around me blurred. The walls, the kitchen, everything vanished. My heart stopped. And just like that, I was back. Back to the day David first came to our village. Back to when everything started. I looked around, my breath caught in my throat. Someone patted me on the back, a sharp, familiar gesture. I jerked my head up, my eyes locking onto Joe's dark face, his teeth flashing in the sunlight. "What are you spacing out for, girl?" he said, his voice gruff, snapping me back to reality. "Hurry up and pick one to take home." I stood there, frozen, as the chaos of that day unfolded before me. The group of college students had arrived, led by David Grant, the man I had married in my previous life. The same David, but different. He was younger, more carefree, and I could feel it in the air, the heavy weight of fate pushing us toward each other again. I had to do something. I couldn't let this happen again. I looked at the two women already being led away by the village Andes, and in a heartbeat, I acted. I grabbed Aunt Ruth's arm and pulled her aside. "My dad's out restocking goods," I said, trying to sound calm, despite the storm brewing in my chest. "I don't know when he'll be back. Let this young lady stay with me." Aunt Ruth paused, then nodded reluctantly. "All right, but ask if she's willing to go with you." I turned and spotted her Megan Lane, a name I'd never forgotten. In my last life, she had been David's colleague. She had defended me when the rumors of David's affair with Blake spread like wildfire, publicly shaming him, but it was too late. The damage had been done, but this time, I wouldn't let the same mistakes happen. I wouldn't fall into the same trap. Megan agreed without hesitation. After a few quick words, she grabbed her things and followed me home. My heart was pounding. I had to make this count. No more being a victim. No more suffering for the man who didn't deserve my love. I led Megan to the room I had prepared, a modest space, but one that was mine, one I had worked for. And then, as I sat in the store, surrounded by the familiar sights of my youth, I let myself drift, but only for a moment. It wasn't long before I heard a voice I thought I'd never hear again, the voice that had haunted my every waking moment for years. "Hi, could you get me a bar of soap?" I froze. My entire body stiffened. I looked up, and there he was. David Grant, decades younger, yet unmistakably him. He stared at me with that familiar expression, the one that once sent a jolt of excitement through my veins, but now only made my blood run cold. His eyes scanned me, searching for recognition, for the connection he thought we had. I didn't move, couldn't move. "What's your name?" I forced myself to ask, my voice flat. "Have we met before?" he said, confused. My heart raced, and in that moment, I realized something terrifying. He didn't remember me. He didn't remember our past, our life together. It was all gone. The second chance I had prayed for was here, but at what cost? I stared at him, my mind spinning. The old wounds, the betrayals, the lies, they all rushed back to me in a flood. I had to remind myself why I was here, why I had to take control. "Lots of people look like me," I said, keeping my tone icy. "My name is none of your business." David's brow furrowed, and he waved his hand in front of my face, clearly confused. He let out a nervous laugh and walked off, glancing back at me every few steps. I couldn't breathe. My heart was hammering in my chest. Could this be real? Had I truly gone back to this moment, to this man? The man who ruined my life. I took a deep breath, forcing the memories down. I couldn't let myself be drawn in by him again. This time, I would not make the same mistakes. I couldn't. I wouldn't. The next few days passed in a blur of unfamiliar faces and familiar routines. Megan settled into the room I'd prepared for her, but I found myself constantly on edge. Every corner of the house seemed to hold echoes of the past, reminders of the life I had lived, of the man I had married. The old wounds resurfaced, but now I was determined not to let them consume me. I couldn't go back to being that woman, the one who silently accepted betrayal, the one who quietly endured. It wasn't just David that haunted me. It was everything. The years I had wasted, the part of me I had lost, the joy I had given up in the name of love, a love that was never truly there. But this time, it would be different. This time, I had control. I had to remind myself of that every day. On the third day of Megan's stay, my father came home late from the market, carrying his usual load of goods. I greeted him, but his expression was unusually serious. He pulled me aside, his voice lowered, as if he were about to share something important. "I hear a few of those college boys are quite good looking," he said, his voice almost teasing, though his eyes held concern. "Better get things settled before they leave." I felt a familiar weight settle in my chest. My father, who had always protected me, had finally come to terms with the reality of my age. The reality that I wasn't getting any younger. It was something I had been avoiding for years, something I never wanted to face. But now, it seemed that the time had come. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I let his words linger in the air. Was he trying to push me into a relationship I didn't want? Trying to steer me toward another life of duty and submission? Or was he simply trying to protect me in the only way he knew how? After a long pause, I spoke, my voice steady, though the uncertainty churned inside me. "I'll think about it, Dad." That night, after Megan had gone to bed, I stood by the window, watching the stars twinkle above. The same stars that had witnessed the pain I'd lived through. The same stars that had watched me endure a marriage I now realized was a prison. David had been my jailer, and I had been his prisoner, shackled by the expectations of a life I never wanted. And yet, despite everything, despite all the pain, there was a small part of me that still longed for him. A part of me that couldn't entirely escape the memory of the man I had once loved. It was a cruel irony. How could I ever love someone who had torn me apart? Someone who had never truly cared for me? That was when I realized this wasn't just about revenge. This was about survival. About building a future where I was in control, where I didn't have to ask for permission to live. I had been given a second chance. I couldn't waste it. The next day, I was sitting at the counter of the general store when I heard the door creak open. My heart skipped a beat as I turned around, half expecting to see David standing there, his familiar presence suddenly filling the room. But it wasn't him. It was Megan, looking flustered, her hands gripping a small bag. "I've got some medicine for David," she said, her voice anxious. "One of the guys from the group, he's got a fever. I'm going to try and help. Do you have any more medicine?" I didn't hesitate, my mind already racing, my body reacting before I could stop it. "Yes, I've got some," I said, quickly handing her the small packet. "I'll come with you." As we hurried through the village, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach. It was the same feeling I had when David had been bitten by a rat in my last life. The same sense of dread, like fate was pulling me towards something I couldn't escape. Megan's footsteps quickened, and I followed, keeping my distance. We finally reached Grandma Jing's house, where David had been staying. The door was open, and I could hear muffled voices from inside. As I stepped into the small room, I saw David lying on a bed, his face pale, his body trembling with fever. I froze. It wasn't just the fever. It was something else. The way he looked at me, the confusion in his eyes, the uncertainty. "Lynn?" he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Is it really you?" I stood still, my heart pounding in my chest. For a brief moment, I saw the David I once knew, the man who had been a stranger to me, yet somehow had once held my heart. But that was before. This was now. I took a step back, my resolve hardening. "I'm not the person you think I am," I said, my voice cold. "Don't look at me like that." David's eyes widened in confusion, and he reached out, his hand trembling. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "I know I've wronged you. I never meant for any of this to happen." I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I saw the man who had betrayed me, the man who had never once understood the pain he had caused. "Sorry isn't enough," I said, my voice low. "It never was." Megan stood silently by the door, her eyes darting between us. She could sense the tension, the unsaid words that hung heavy in the air. David's face fell. "What do you want me to say?" he asked, his voice breaking. "That I regret everything? That I wish I could take it all back?" "No," I replied sharply. "What I want is for you to leave. Leave and never come back." David's expression twisted with pain, but he didn't argue. Instead, he slowly rose from the bed, his legs unsteady, and stumbled toward the door. As he stepped outside, I could hear him whisper, more to himself than anyone else, "I never deserved you. Not in this life, not in any life." I stood there, watching him walk away, and for the first time, I felt nothing. No sorrow, no anger, just the hollow weight of a life that was no longer mine to live. But even as I watched him disappear into the distance, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning, that fate had yet to reveal its true face. Days passed, and the silence in the house grew louder. I couldn't escape it. The weight of the past always lurked in the background, no matter how hard I tried to bury it. Megan had settled in well, and the village seemed like it hadn't changed a bit. But for me, everything had. The memory of David lingered, no longer a sharp pain, but a dull throb in my chest. He was out of my life, but was he truly gone? I had to keep telling myself that this was my chance to rewrite my story, that nothing in this life would be the same as before. But still, that nagging doubt remained. Could I really move on from everything we had, or everything he had stolen from me? It wasn't until the day of the food factory interview that I truly started to believe in the power of change. The day before, I'd passed the written test with ease. I knew I was ready, but as I prepared for the interview, the weight of everything David, my lost opportunities, my father's dreams for me made my stomach churn. I kept telling myself, this is it. This is my future. It wasn't just about getting a job, it was about proving to myself that I wasn't the woman I had once been, that I was capable of far more than being someone's wife. I didn't tell my father. I didn't want him to worry. He'd already given me so much, and now it was time for me to give something back. The interview went better than I could have hoped. I was nervous, yes, but there was a strength in me now that I hadn't known existed before. I answered each question with confidence, proving that I was no longer just the quiet, submissive woman I had once been. When I got the call that I'd been hired, I almost couldn't believe it. My heart raced. I could feel the stirrings of hope. A new path opening up before me. This was just the beginning, but fate, as it often does, had other plans. I was walking home from the interview when I saw him again. David. He was standing outside the store, looking lost. My heart skipped, then pounded in my chest. He saw me almost immediately, his eyes locking onto mine. For a split second, everything came crashing back, the feelings I had buried, the pain, the regret, but I refused to let it consume me. "Lynn," he called, his voice hoarse, almost pleading. "We need to talk." I stood still, watching him carefully. He looked different, disheveled, as though life had finally caught up with him. His eyes were desperate, searching for something in me that no longer existed. I turned away, not willing to engage. "I have nothing to say to you." David's face twisted with hurt, but he quickly masked it with anger. "You don't even care, do you? After everything I've done for you, you just turn your back on me?" I didn't stop walking. You didn't do anything for me, I said quietly, but firmly. You used me, you broke me, and you ruined my life. I heard his footsteps behind me, frantic now. Lynn, don't go, please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was wrong. I didn't stop. I couldn't. I was done with him, done with his apologies, done with the man who had never loved me, never truly cared. Sorry isn't enough, David, I said, my voice breaking with the weight of everything I had carried for so long. You don't get to come back into my life. Not now, not ever. I reached the door to my house, my hand already on the handle, when I heard him say one last thing that made me pause. I never deserved you, Lynn. It was the truth. But it was too late for him to realize it now. I closed the door behind me, my heart pounding. But this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from something else, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. The next few days were a blur. I threw myself into my work at the food factory, each task a small victory, a step away from the woman I used to be. I kept my head down, focusing on my goals, on the future I was building for myself. But still, there were moments when I thought about David, about what could have been, about the years we had wasted. But I refused to go down that path again. One evening, Megan came to visit. She had a strange look on her face, a mix of curiosity and concern. She didn't speak at first, just watched me with those perceptive eyes of hers. Lynn, she finally said, there's something you need to know. My heart sank. I had learned to trust Megan over the years, and when she said those words, I braced myself. What is it? It's about David, she said, her voice soft. He's been asking around about you. He's not doing well. He's lost everything. His job, his reputation, and he's not the man he used to be. I swallowed hard. Part of me wanted to feel pity for him, but I knew better now. I had to stay strong. I don't care, I said firmly. David made his choices. He's the one who ruined everything, not me. Megan nodded, understanding. I just thought you should know, but I agree. You've worked so hard to get where you are. Don't let him drag you back into the past. And that was the truth of it. I couldn't go back. I would end single quotes t.s time. Past. My life started to take shape. I worked hard, studied hard, and found a rhythm in the world that I had always been too afraid to embrace. It wasn't easy. Nothing worth having ever is. But I was finally becoming the woman I had always been meant to be. Then, one day, as I was walking to the market, I bumped into Zach, my classmate, the student council president. He was standing at the corner, waiting for someone. His eyes brightened when he saw me, and I couldn't help but smile. Lynn, he said warmly, I've been meaning to talk to you. I raised an eyebrow. About what? Zach's smile softened. I've been thinking a lot about you. I know this might sound sudden, but I'd like to take you out sometime, if you're interested. His words took me by surprise. I hadn't expected this, but when I looked at him, really looked at him, I saw something different, something real. He wasn't like David. He respected me. He didn't want to control me, and in that moment, I realized something I hadn't let myself believe in a long time. I wasn't alone anymore. I wasn't just a shadow of my former self. I was me. I'd like that, I said, my heart lighter than it had been in years. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself moving forward in ways I hadn't imagined possible. I enrolled in night school, determined to build a future for myself, one where I wasn't defined by anyone but me. And then, on graduation day, as I stood in front of the crowd, my heart filled with pride. I had done it. I had come so far. But what really struck me was the look in my father's eyes as he watched me. He was proud of me, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly worthy of that pride. As I walked across the stage to accept my diploma, I caught a glimpse of Zach in the audience, his smile warm and encouraging. He had become more than just a friend. He had become my support, my strength. David was gone. My past was gone. And the future? It was mine to create.